SEO panel. The contrarian, what was your title? Raz, what was your title?
I guess maybe a process-oriented guy.
Okay, so hang on, let's see. So, what works? Contrarian, digital strategist. So that's the short title. Jesse, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jesse Anderson. I'm a curriculum developer and instructor with Cloudera. We deal with big data. So a lot of the things that we'll be talking about here at SEO, this is the stuff that I teach people how to do themselves. So that page rank and that sort of thing, which we'll get into more later.
Raz.
And I'm Razvan Neagu, or just Raz. I have a company called Commotion. Initially was doing shareware software, utilities to help generate websites. Ultimately, kind of that website production took over, and now I'm more into the content production, website production, web development, web design. So I do a bunch of SEO as part of that on a daily basis.
And I'm Jess, for those of you who don't know me, and these days I work in the realm of digital strategy, so it touches on internet marketing and it touches on social media, but the focus point is a little different. So when you hear me talk about those things, please don't think I'm an expert in social media, because I actually was taking frantic notes from Nico. I was learning some things even about Facebook as we were in his session just a few minutes ago. So from there, today we're going to talk about SEO. And my question to you, right off the bat, is what do you think this session is going to be about? Yeah, go for it, Nico.
Optimizing your HTML.
Optimizing your HTML. Any other takers?
What not to do.
What not to do?
Have your content being focused. Focus content.
Focus content. Anything else? Search engine optimization. And we had a white hat, black hat. I have to tell you, are those things that are on your realm and your radars?
Now they are.
Okay, I was going to say, because I'm looking to them. My idea about search engine optimization is a little bit different. So it looks like we're going to touch on several different things that will hopefully build an entire picture for you of what search optimization can do for you today that might be different than what you have had in the past, and maybe some trends going forward about what's coming and how things are changing for search, and that the whole idea of search gives us more opportunity in some ways than ever before. So do any of you have questions before we begin?
Yes.
Okay.
Why should I think it's important?
Why should you think it's important?
I'll give my thoughts first. How are you acquiring your customers? Most of our customers are finding you, they're not finding you over that 1-800 number anymore. And they're not finding you generally physically in some location, in some physical store at Best Buy or something. The best way to find your customers is over the internet. You should care that when people search for something that's your particular piece of software, that you're the one at the very top or near the top. That's why you should care, in my opinion.
What about you, Raz?
To add on to this, I think it's also about not alleviating the need to find customers and actually turn that table around, have the customers find you. So I think this it's tied to the larger current of moving from the old school of doing marketing, where it was kind of outbound, where you're trying to reach out and beat the prospect over the head with a certain message and try to force them into taking an action, to be more inbound marketing, presenting yourself as something attractive to what they want to do, and being able to relate to what their needs are, being really in sync with that, and then having them find you. So SEO is, I think, a really key component of that, smoothing the path of the prospect to get to find you.
And I would add on to that our digital footprint today is so important. It allows people to find out about us before they ever come to our website in some cases. They might hear about us on Facebook first. They might hear about us on Twitter first. They might hear about us from a press release. They might hear about us from one of their friends who's used your software in the past. And if they look up your name or your business or something like that, the authority that you carry with you, what comes up when somebody is searching about your product is your, for lack of a better term, it's like a quick resume. People are going to go, oh, okay, I want to learn more, or oh, okay, I don't. And that's where I think search engine optimization really plays a role, because when we take certain practices and we have a certain mindset that we've got this idea that no matter what we're doing, we're not being stalked by paparazzi, but we can be as online, and we don't have as much privacy as we used to. And so that gives us an opportunity to use it to our advantage so that we can connect with the people that we want to connect with when they are ready to connect with us. Another question. All right, so let's talk about, we came prepared. We talked about this beforehand for a few minutes, and I'm so high-tech I wrote it on my paper, because one thing you guys will know about me is I don't code. I am not super technical, and in the grand scheme of things, writing it down and talking about it actually helps me more than typing it on a computer. So when we talked about, why we should do it, and I would like to spend a minute and talk about why it's important to think about SEO as things are changing in the world. So how do you feel like, even from 3 years ago to today, how are things changing in such a way that make it something that we have to think about? And do we think about it in the same way? Or do we have to think about it in a different way?
Well,
Either one.
I don't know how much you guys keep up on Google and that sort of thing, but Google just announced that they're coming out with a new ranking algorithm for their search, which is called Honeycomb. So to Jess's point of what has changed in the past few years, the Google algorithm is changing. They're changing the way that they're sorting things. They're changing how things are not stagnant in the search engine world. So you, as the person who's trying to optimize your site, you're going to have to look and see Honeycomb, which is the name of the new product, the new search product, has, I'm sorry? Hummingbird. I'm sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Hummingbird. Hummingbird hasn't been released yet. It hasn't come out. But in previous times, there's been other Google algorithm changes which have actually dropped people significantly. And that's one of the reasons why you need to keep abreast of these things, to make sure that your page doesn't go from number 1 down to number 40, which is what happened to people's websites. There was a quote, a tweet from one of the people I follow. Do you want to know how your customers are never going to find you? It's on the second page of a Google search.
That's right.
I also want to, I guess, not lose sight of one thing, and that is, in the bigger scheme of things, the best way to protect yourself against changes that Google does is to align yourself with Google's interests. Understand that Google really has its own customers that's trying to serve. And that is to match content with intent. So you have an end user typing a query into Google search. Google is trying to figure out what the underlying intent is and how to match that with the most relevant, most pertinent content they can find. That's Google's job, and they have beaucoup resources to accomplish it. So I think it's less important in the bigger scheme of things about trying to get too tricky with Google, or trying to fool Google, or trying to be on top of the latest loops to try to get a leg up, because then that you just get into a treadmill of always be a game of chess, and you're playing that chess game with Google, so it's probably not going to last very long. So the better way is to think of aligning yourself with what the interest of the customer is. So they are trying to, they come to the web or to your site in search for a solution to their problem. They have some pain points. They want to find something. So really understanding what your end user wants to do and aligning yourself with that need. So it's not that much about you selling to them, but understanding what they're buying, what they're thinking, putting yourself in their mindset and their perspective. I think ultimately that is the path that will make you win with Google. Because then you are aligned that you are both trying to do the same thing. You are both trying to serve that end customer.
And that's a really good point, because when you type in, and I'm going to use non-industry things as I was doing this recently. So if you type in homes for sale in Seattle, which is where I am from, it's not only it's going to turn it into a question. What homes are for sale in Seattle? It's also going to change that question for context. What houses are for sale in Seattle? Buying a home, buying a house. All of those keyword phrases are now lumped together and based off of previous visitors to those websites and what value they found there is going to help determine some of that order more than keyword these days. And so in the sense that Google is starting to make changes to be more human-like and help match this amazing content that's out there with the people who actually are taking the time to make the amazing content, which has always kind of hurt us in the past. When we take the time to make good content, we don't play some of those games like keyword stuffing or whatever other tactics you want to talk about. We would appear lower and lower pages on the search results, and that is slowly changing. And that does go back to our digital footprint of, if I'm talking about it on my website and I have a Facebook fan page, I better be talking about it over there. And oh yeah, there's a person, me, behind that fan page, so I probably should put it on my personal page once in a while too, so that, and of course, Facebook is not indexed with Google at this time, I don't think. One of you guys may know that, but I know that Google Plus and I know that Twitter both are. And so if you have Twitter accounts or Google Plus accounts and you are not utilizing them to promote your business or share across information that might be value to the people that you are cultivating relationships with there, you are missing out on some natural extension of getting your content out there that is not going to happen if people are not sharing that content. And how can they share it if they don't even know it exists? So that's where I see the trend going, is there's going to be much more marketing involved in search engine optimization. And in the past, it's been very technical. So we could have the technical people over here and do it. And we have the marketing people over here and they do it. And you know what? Every year, it seems to be getting closer and closer. And I think what I heard both Jesse and Raz say, and I totally agree with, is that we are moving in that direction, where marketing is getting closer to search and closer to search and closer to search. Does that make you think of anything else?
I was thinking maybe we could go over the actual algorithm.
Let's do it.
I assume everybody's pretty much a programmer in here, or are you guys interested in how that algorithm works?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So when I introduced myself, I was talking about how I'm an instructor. I teach people how to use what's this program called, or this technology called MapReduce. So MapReduce is a way that Google came up with to search the entire internet, or to index the entire internet. And they need to index the entire internet because there's a couple parts to what's this algorithm called PageRank. And PageRank was so original at the time when Google did it, because it worked a lot different than the way Yahoo and Alta Vista worked. We're going back to the old days of probably 10, 15 years ago, okay? So what Google or what Yahoo did at those times is it would just do keyword searches. If you said that my site had a bunch of information about cats and realty and that sort of thing, then you would come up there. But it didn't actually have a feedback loop of this is what people are actually interested in when they type that in. So what Google did is they combined that with their algorithm called PageRank. And PageRank would say, go through the internet and say, look at the internet and extract all the words that are in every one of these pages. And then, as you're looking through the internet, look at the links around to those pages to see where that page is linked from and what the sentiment was as they were linked to. So an example is, for me personally, I've been interviewed by the Wall Street Journal. So I have a link on the Wall Street Journal that points to my jesse-anderson.com, and I have a link on the BBC that points to my website. And then Google looked back at those websites that linked to me and said, what kind of site is that? So when the BBC links to you, it's a big thing, and when the Wall Street Journal links to you, it's a big thing. But if jesse-anderson.com links to some other site, that's not as big, that is not a nexus. It's not as heavily weighted. So that's one part of it. Then there's the actual content of your page, where it's looking at the keywords that are in there, what you're saying in there. But then we're going to have another part that's very important, and that's the user interactions themselves. When I go to search for Jesse Anderson, so I used to be on the 45th entry on Google when you Google for me. But after a lot of people searching for me and a lot of big sites linking to me, I'm now the third entry. I'm the third result. And it was because of, once again, big sites linking to me. But when people would actually search for me on Google, they would have to go through several different pages and say, Jesse's on the third page or the second page. Google will gradually bump me up based on what consumers, what people have actually done as they've interacted with the site. They've seen that Jesse Anderson should be moved forward. And Angry Birds doesn't mean a bird that with an angry face. It means this app. It will, as the internet changes, things will bubble up forward. Does that make sense? Are there any questions on this PageRank algorithm?
So it's also contextual.
It is contextual. If you want to read the algorithm, there's a book by Jimmy Lin called MapReduced Algorithms. It's a free book. Google it, and yes, Google Jimmy Lin MapReduce book.
That's cool. So when and you're talking about the contextual piece, and I'm glad for the book reference because I'm always looking for something new. I've been reading a book, and I'm about halfway through, called Google Semantic Search, and it's talking about that very thing. It's talking about the weight of who is linking to you is very important. The weight that you are linking to other sites can be very important to those sites, especially if they're smaller than you. And one of the things that can really be of value in some of what Jesse was articulating there is that together those sites can grow. So Jesse probably has a few other people that he regularly talks to, and whether you talk to them publicly on a social platform or you comment on each other's blogs or you're on a public forum versus a private forum, a public forum, all of those people that are coming together on that topic are going to actually be raised in that PageRank together because other people are going to find value in the entire conversation. So Jesse is helping people that he is connected to. I am helping people that I am connected to. You are helping people that you are connected to. And you can use that power of each of your individual areas of expertise and how you are all working together to create this network of awareness that brings a whole group of sites up together. Yeah.
If 1,000 download sites have all got my same ad file and they're all using that same 100-word description, am I getting hurt? Because is the same description followed by the link, or does that help? Does it hurt?
Yeah, typically I would say that does not hurt. I know I get that question quite a lot because people hear that, duplicative content, it gets penalized by Google. And indeed, if, let's say, I write a blog post, and then I post that page, the content of that page, on multiple sites, Google sees it as just being redundant, and you're more kind of confusing users. It will make a determination as to which is the best one of those, and link to that one, and downrank the other ones. The example that you give, it falls into a different category, and you can think of, let's say, a DVD player that you have on an e-commerce site. And that DVD player made by Panasonic can be sold by multiple, by Best Buy, by Amazon, by multiple retailers. It doesn't get penalized because you have that same listing of that product, be it software or other retail product, in a number of different channels.
So how does it differentiate a blog post as duplicate content from a product description as duplicate content?
I would venture again.
Content is content.
It
Well,
may not
so,
have
but
to,
I'm-
but I would say that it's also looking for certain context within there. Is it on Amazon, for example? You'd take that as an indication that it's a product. In your case, you're talking about download sites. So maybe based on that, Google has some knowledge of what a download site is and is grouping them together in some fashion.
Although that does bring up a good point, because what I don't know, and maybe you guys might be able to expand on that, was what if I use the same product description on my website that they're all using? And in that case, I would actually make my product description on my website hopefully enough different that I could know that it's mine. Also, this brings up a good point about Google authorship. And I don't know where this ranks in the whole idea of search engine optimization in general, but the whole idea of whether it's a blog post or a content page or any page on your website, your particular website, if you set up that authorship tag through Google, it starts to realize you can claim ownership of that content. So even if it is put on Amazon, it knows who Amazon is when it's going to that link. It knows who your e-commerce provider is when it goes to that link. It knows all of that stuff. So if you actually are taking it one step further and saying, I'm the author of this content on my blog post, then Google's going to know that, and other people that are linking to it, your picture or your logo or whatever you have set up in that authorship file is going to show up next to the search result when somebody does a search on the Google page.
And
Oh, sorry, I just want to echo her. I set that up about 4 months ago on my site, and it's incredibly important if you're blogging a lot and you're guest posting that you need to claim the authorship of that, because Google will give that higher weight. But the other big important part is that it will put your picture there. And what I've read in my personal experience is that when I read a blog post and there's a picture there, I know, or I can assume that it's a real person instead of something blog spam or something that I'm not as interested in. And I found that my hit rate has went up as well.
Can I ask another question?
Please.
Have you guys looked at all, I've seen where the generic top-level domain names, somebody's claiming that there's going to be thousands of new domain names available. If that happens, how are the search engines going to even compare? I mean, how's that going to work? Because should I go out there right now and get the .software versions of my stuff? Is .com still going to be prevalent?
Yeah, I guess since we'll probably just go down through. I've been asked this question before, and I'd say .co has been around for probably 5 years, and I don't think it's really caught on. I kept on expecting that, so I bought jessa.co, and I just don't. It redirects to my site because I've never used it. .com, it's just been ingrained into us so much, and that's my opinion of as we get all these extra TLDs. It's the top level domains. I don't think they're going to make as big a difference. I think it's much more of a land grab and a money grab. Your question as to how Google's going to find this, the way TLDs work is they're a name service, so that the Google can actually go through and see every new top level domain that's been out there or that's been created, and it can go scrape that and go index that.
And I would say, a practical strategy for it is if you own a .com domain, it doesn't justify the expense to get the other TLDs that are replicating that. However, if you are really looking for a specific name that it's not available in the .com, and you may find that available in one of the new TLDs, then that can be a reasonable thing to do.
And I would take it one step further and say if you already have your Google authorship and you already have a digital footprint and you already have authority and trust with whoever your audience is, that even though it's not a .com, it may rank higher than the actual .com because you have established to yourself and your audience and your consumers and you're answering their questions. And so when somebody's searching for that, Google's going to know that even though it's not a .com, it's providing better content than maybe the .com. You're smiling, Dennis. Why are you smiling?
Actually, I wasn't smiling.
Oh, was it a smirk?
First of all, if you find that a .com domain is already taken, there's a very good reason it's taken. Very often it's taken by a competitor or someone who's doing something similar, or someone who is potentially going to sue you for trademark infringement. In other words, if I find that a .com domain is taken and I want to go over and get the .us domain name, I'm just buying myself a future trademark infringement suit. That's my opinion. I move on.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, do you have more questions? Other questions that have come up? Yes, come up with your
Just a question about branding for an individual like myself, who for the near future is going to be running a one-person software business. And it's a question of what balance might be best for the website content for my name.com versus my product brand.com. And should I,
And are they the same or are they separate?
well,
Or right?
yeah.
Okay.
I think it can be, you can think of it as a strategic business decision in terms of what brand you will choose to build. Are you building yourself up as a person, as a consultant, as a, this digital person, or are you building the company up? Which one will be more important? And thinking not only short term, like you were mentioning before, it's, in terms of a longer term investment, where do you want to put all that, the Google juice that you accumulate?
And I would say, this is a really good question, and I would say that there are two big strategies. One is, are you going to talk about your brand, and is the brand the most important? Or are you going to focus on the people that are in the brand? And in my opinion, in the world of Google authorship, anybody who works for you that has their own account and is creating their own content someplace else is going to have that Google authorship. And if they have a following, it is beneficial for your brand to incorporate that into your brand because and we're going to go really big, we're going to go to Coke. Coke is a ginormous brand, but people work at Coke. People connect with the experience that Coke provides. And then there are people just like us in this room that are sharing and responsible for putting the content out in all the different media platforms out there, online and offline, it doesn't even matter. And it's those people who are really, really good at their jobs that excel, and they're creating their own followings. And that is like a one-step reach. It's almost like the friends of friends that Nico was talking about when we were talking about advertising in Facebook. And that is actually something that can be really beneficial to you. So it really is a decision that you have to make, and when you make it, it's kind of hard to change. It's definitely hard to change if you decide to go the people route first and let the brand sit over the people, and what does that look like? And that would be for us too. So what do you want? Do you want your face on your business? And is your face and your business the same thing, or is it not?
So, for example, if I was planning to sell the product brand 5 or 10 years from now, I should probably focus on that. If I was planning to work for another 30 or 40 years in various areas, then I should probably focus on myself.
That's one strategy, yes. And that's a viable strategy, yes.
I think you could use the Kentucky Fried Chicken model for this one. So Colonel Sanders was the exact thing that you just talked about.
Exactly.
So take a look at his experience. What Colonel Sanders did is it was Colonel Sanders Kentucky Fried Chicken. and he was part of the logo, still is part of the logo. And when he sold that business, they kept him on as they originally let him go, and he wasn't promoting anymore. They had a significant downturn, and they actually brought him back to promote the brand, where it was so iconic. So if you have a good Southern suit and look good in that, I would do it definitely.
I love it. Yeah, Keith.
How about if you apply it to a product as opposed to the company producing the product? Because you're promoting the product out there. But
So-
the functionality of the search is really the function and features of the product that people search for, right? The investment of what you build into your SEO and everything, I mean, is it more relevant to the company?
It's probably, I think, the riskiest of the three.
Yeah, I would
Because there's much higher likelihood that the product will actually change in time. The other two, company or if you're a one-man shop, the person, it's more likely to be stable. Obviously, the person is going to be, end-of-life stability there. No pun intended, but it's still, if you are a one-man shop that will keep that brand, the person makes sense. If you're thinking that you may bring other people involved and or sell the company, then go into the company. It seems less reasons to go onto the product unless you're something, let's say, like BlackBerry, right? They were something in motion. And
Research in Motion.
Research in Motion, thank you. And they got rebranded as BlackBerry because everybody knew the product. So it's like, hey, we're losing all that brand equity. Let's bite the bullet and call ourselves BlackBerry. Does that answer your question?
I would say that the keywords and the content that you're going to put out about your product speak for itself, and you've got that search engine, you've got the shareability, you've got the content, you've got all of that built into whatever content you're already doing, and so forming a community around that may make sense. Kind of like Adobe Photoshop, we were looking at that earlier.
Yeah, let me give you an example. You've heard of the product you send it, right? Mm-hmm. You change the name of the product to HighTail, okay, and so goes the company as well. They lost all their SEO placement in doing something like that, right?
There has to have been a strategy behind the scenes that we can't see from the outside looking in. Then for that would be my thought, because there has to be a really, really good reason to give up all of the age of your domain, how long you've had content on that domain, how much you've talked about that in communities, how much you've shared about that out there, and how much other people are talking about it for you.
I'm going to guess there was a lawyer involved, kind of like what he was saying. Somebody said, hey, there's a trademark and we're going to start suing.
Oops. So,
But I don't know for certain. I'm just guessing.
I have a question, this is for Gary. Is there a business myth that we need to know about when it comes to branding strategy? We didn't talk about that this morning.
Not that I can think of, but I sort of go with the don't base your product on. Products have a finite lifespan almost always, unless you're maybe a Facebook or a Google. But you might start with this product and then add another one and another one, and all of a sudden they're not really products, and all your branding is just a waste.
Yeah.
I can give a personal example. When my shareware product is called Shazam, that does web gallery based on you import your photos and spits out HTML web gallery. And the domain name for it is Shazam.com. Even though the corporation that developed it was Commotion. But because under the Commotion umbrella, I was doing so many different things, and it was, doing interactive videos and 3D assets for, video game companies, and doing some consulting and websites and product. I wanted to give it a house for the shareware product that was not distracted with a lot of other stuff. So then I decided, it's like, okay, let me give it a web domain that houses it, and then I gave it the domain that matched the name of the product. So there are reasons when you might want to do that, but I would say otherwise, by and large, it's a riskier proposition because you're investing in building a property that may actually change. And now I'm not doing that shareware anymore. I'm back to starting to invest into the commotion.com website.
Do you know what I love about this? What I love is that it's amazing how search and search engine optimization actually relate to very important business decisions like branding. That's what I like the turn of this conversation. I think that's really good. Did you have a question, Sue?
I do, and it's just about what you said.
Yeah.
This is really interesting stuff about business strategy, but how does that relate to SEO? I mean, give me something concrete. What can I walk away here with?
What can you walk away here with is that what your decision is for and I know you guys jump in and we can totally make this a mishmash. Don't wait till I'm done talking. What you can walk away with is that our digital footprint is more important than ever before. The amount of keywords we use in an article is less important than the fact that the article gives something of value to the people who are looking to use our product. The fact that we actually have a product that people want and we know who those people are, and the more targeted that message, the more amplified and the more people you will reach. Because if I have a network of 10, or I have a network of 1,000, or I have a network of 10,000, if only one person engages with me or emails me or talks to me on Facebook, I would much rather have 1 in 10 than 1 in 1,000 or 10,000. So it's all about the specificity of the information that you are putting out there and the consistency in which that message is going, and are the people who need to see it seeing it. And so if you are taking care of your consumer and putting the content that has that relevance in there for them, search engine optimization is going to go, oh, Sue, I get what you're saying, and hey, there are a whole bunch of people over here that are searching for that, and I think they might like you for just this one. And it could change by the day because of how they weight different things. And this is where I get a little fuzzy and I go out of the realm. So I'm going to look to Raz and Jesse, and that's, I don't know what blog posts rank and compared to my static pages of my website, compared to my tweets, compared to my people that talk about or share out from Facebook to other places. But I think all of that makes a difference. So the SEO today is more about the people and less about the actual process of optimizing something. You're optimizing for your people. You're not optimizing for a piece of text or a thing.
And actually, that's a great last point to follow up on, because I would say if I want you to leave with 2 key takeaways from this, is one, worry less about what Google is doing and try to understand who your audience is, align yourself with that, and create content for that. It's not easy to do, but if you find a speck of passion in that aspect, so you can be excited about creating content that connects with your audience, be it blog posts or an ebook, but actually generating content that you're excited about and connects with a constituency. That is one of the best things you can do. That's one thing. 2, in terms of now the SEO specific tactics and satisfying the Google mechanics, the mechanics of Google, I would say it's as simple as realizing that doing a keyword search, understanding what the keywords that you care about are, and optimizing your website such that you have 1 keyword or a key phrase per page. And each page should have an assigned keyword.
That's awesome, because I totally disagree.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
but
so I haven't been able to talk about my contrarian views of things.
Okay.
But in fact, they're saying a lot of the things that I would agree with. That you don't focus on trying to game Google. Gaming Google will eventually bite you in the butt because they're going to figure it out or they're going to change their algorithm. And all that effort you put into it, you just have wasted.
Yep.
You got to put your time into creating engagement, creating new content. And I can't remember, somebody asked a question about, so what's the value of a blog post? Well, the value of a blog post is that you're going to bring in people to your site. You remember how I talked about the PageRank algorithm? Well, the PageRank algorithm weights you based on people going to your site as well. So they don't have to go to that very specific page. They need to go to your site. How do you drive people to your site? How do you drive that engagement? You create things that are interesting. So as Raz was talking about, he created content for photographers. I would be talking about photography and the technical aspects of photography on my blog just as much as I'd talk about the software. Mm-hmm. Then in my social media, I'd be trying to bring that in there. You're trying to create more flow through your website by engaging the people on your digitally. One of the people that I really agree with, his name is Brett Simmons. He's a professor here in town, and he talks about those are social objects. So you creating that YouTube video or you creating that blog post is a social object that stays with you or your company. And those are things that can be reused and they're up there on the web for other people to use. And they will benefit you as they go through your blog. They'll see that you are an expert and they'll want to buy your software as a result.
And I like that. And where Raz and I disagree is that it's the one word or phrase per page, because I think that today, you don't have to have a 50-page website to cover 50 keywords. You could have an effective 20-page website to cover 50 keywords if it makes sense for the people that are coming to your site. And that's where another place where we agree is that all three of us is what it sounds like. We want people to come to our site. We want people to know that when they come to us, we're solving a problem for them. So, okay. Other questions? Yeah.
I was wondering if locality is important. I notice that when I search for my keywords at home, I come up very high, and when I search elsewhere, I come up okay. And if that is true, if I should maybe eliminate the address from the searchable part of my website, because I don't really care about local people using my product.
You make up a really good point, because we really are not bound by physical geography like a locksmith or a baker or a shoe store. Go ahead, Jesse.
About 3 years ago, Google started changing their algorithm to be much more locality specific. So it isn't the fact that you have an address on there, it's the fact that more often than not, people from Reno, so when I Google myself in Reno, I'm higher than when I Google myself in New York. And that's because people in New York Google me less and find me less. Mm-hmm. And it's not that there's an address or something that says I'm from Reno.
So the main person who's Googling it locally is probably me.
Well, but how about this?
Then I said, you need to travel around more and Google yourself.
Exactly. Well, but I would take it one step further, is my in real life experiences and my in real life networks are now for me in Seattle. So I would expect the people Googling me in Seattle to be more than my network of people that are not in Seattle. So I think it might even just be the people we talk to in real life, and that goes to a point where, more and more what we experience in real life is what we're expecting and able to get online. And what that allows us to do is have really meaningful relationships. So when people that we know by coming and talking to each other in person now can stay in touch with us online too, and that could also be why it's more, to Jesse's point, more people are looking for you in your area. So give yourself a little more credit than that.
And just one other point on it. I wouldn't take your address off, because ultimately you do not get, it's hard to know what Google does. I'm sorry?
I could make it just a graphic rather than...
No, but I wouldn't necessarily even do that, because I wouldn't say that Google penalizes you for searches elsewhere. It may just give you a local bump thinking that, and I think rightfully so, people that are within your, X perimeter from your zip code may have a little higher interest in knowing about you versus somebody else that matches the search term. So you're not really getting penalized.
That's great, Raz. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
One of the things is the search that Google shows the results, they're actually customized to you based on your account. So if you search, if you change your browser or something else, you'll actually get different results from what you see. Then you're logged in versus when you're not logged in.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, and that's actually...
Did everybody hear that?
He's seeing his own results. If somebody else uses their own browser, even if they're sitting next to him, they'll get different results.
Yeah, to his point, you can use incognito mode in Chrome and private mode, and that I do that sometimes to see what I get versus what other people will get.
Jesse, I remember a while ago, I don't know if it was a few years back, people were talking about heavy duty landing pages, specifically targeting a certain phrase, and then if you had a promotional piece out there, you drove them to this landing page that was on your site but didn't have the navigation, and it just funneled you into, an action that click this button. Is that gone away? Is that still a strong strategy?
I think it's a fabulous strategy.
Yeah.
Personally.
So I speak more from a programmer sense, more than I'm a normal person. I'm more of a programmer where programmers are annoyed by different things. So I would say, what is your product? If your product is aimed at a certain subset of people, find out, does this or that annoy them? That would annoy me, that I went to some special site. If you're doing it for musicians or whatever, hey, maybe that's pretty good, but I'd run it by them. Always remember who is your real niche there.
Well, if it's if it's an emotional piece and you're trying to drive that set of emotions based on the words, but it's just a landing page, I understand the doorway pages are but if it's a true landing page.
Yeah, if it makes perfect sense. If it's a true landing page, to remove distractions and to help funnel into whatever action you want the user to take. I don't see why it would be bad or...
And I don't either, and that would be because I think that one's a little bit less about SEO and measurable, actionable things related to marketing would be my take on it, but I don't know if there's SEO value to landing pages. Do you guys?
I don't see any.
Okay.
What do you have to say on the value of using keywords and key phrases and different elements like title elements or heading elements or emphasis or strong? Do they, how they affect?
Yeah.
It's still go ahead.
I'm sorry. So things like H1s, H2s, those will be looked at closer and rank higher because as you're creating your content, you want to make sure that this subheading is really the subheading that you want there, and that this keyword. So for my personally, I use WordPress. So you'll want to. I usually create between 5 and up to 5 keywords about each post that I do or each page that I do. And I want them very, very specific to what I think that page is really about. Going any higher, Google has started penalizing people for where they just go crazy and they've listed every single thing.
And I think as Google evolves, basically what's happening is it's almost this thing is like it's penalizing over-optimized pages. But basically, things that are easy to do to optimize, they're getting discounted because people are just trying to game the system. So Google is trying to get, it's harder and harder, but it's just getting smarter and smarter into getting to what is the real good content out there that's not being gamed. Before, for example, when early on, there was the keyword meta tag, and that started to get abused. And now pretty much all search engines, well, except Bing in some cases, ignore it completely. And now, the H1s, the heading tags, and placement above, that's higher up on the page, it's more important for keywords. But as people, again, try to over-optimize these pages, I think it will start to diminish in importance in the Google algorithm.
So be smart about it, because as the Google algorithm changes, it's taking more in the people side of things, right? And so as long as you're using keywords effectively, think about when it becomes, there's a fine line between over-optimizing and what the people want. And what Raz is saying is right on, because then you take how long are people staying on the page? Well, that factors into where your page rank goes for that page. Is that content valuable, and is somebody else going to find value of it? Because if 10 people go there and they click the back button, and one person goes there and they stay for 5 minutes, and a sixth person comes along, most likely you're going to be lower in the search rank from that perspective. And I don't know the algorithm, I'm just saying from this particular piece. So you want people to stay there. And if I'm skimming the page as a human, what am I going to skim? I'm going to skim the big words and the pictures. And I'm going to go, this actually makes sense. This is what I was looking for, and I'm going to read the rest. And I'm going to stay longer, and I might click on your related content, and I might go and share that with my friends on Facebook, and I might go and write a whole blog post. You might inspire me to write a whole blog post, and now not only did you have optimized heading tags that caught my attention as a human, you now have a link back to your site from my site because I was moved enough and inspired enough to go write about it. So I'm going to that's the human side of what I think SEO is today. And I know all you programmers out there, I see Dennis, it's not his smile that he's giving me.
For example, one of the phrases that's very relevant to my product also happens to be a name of the TV show. So every person who comes looking for the TV show bounces right out and lowers the value of my site for the people who really care about that. So I have got to remove everything that relates to that TV show so I don't get these phony visitors, and that's the
well, and that's a very good point to bring up. That's very interesting, right? And that's some of. Oh, got it. Well, and that goes back to some of the semantic search, because that must be based off of the keywords people are typing into the search bar. Because if I type in owls, all of a sudden I'm going to get owl cupcakes, owl pictures. I don't know if there's a sports team with an owl on it, but it might be a sports team. And I get to choose which one I want, which will also help people get the right content, and that's going to be based off of optimized, carefully thought out content that has a specific message for a specific target audience. And so, I'm coming at it, it's less about, mechanics are important, but it's less about mechanics and more about what the people are doing when they get there these days for optimization.
The problem is that if I've got a page with 200 words on it, Google's going to pick a lot of irrelevant terms. And from their viewpoint, I'm gaming the system by telling them what specific term I want and forget everybody else. And from my point of view, I'm pointing them in a direction that they will follow.
What do you guys think about that?
Have you tried putting a page description and seeing if that helps?
Yeah.
Didn't help?
No. Actually, what I've found is that AdWords is the only thing, because I can laser focus on exactly what I advertise for. And I simply don't even bother with looking.
For that one.
Then I'd start calling yourself not whatever the name of the TV show is.
Exactly. What was yours?
When you put links on your own website for content that's on your site, if you fully qualify it with HTTP and then the www, does that hurt you? I mean, should links that only link to your own, within your own website just be relevant, or should they be fully qualified? Does that matter?
From a technical point of view, I would have them be relative, more for the point of, if you move into subdirectories, you'll now have relative paths that they're linking through. But as far as Google, I don't believe there's any penalty.
Penalty because, I'm already on the site, but the guy's trying to tell me I'm on the site?
No, their spider's smart enough.
Yeah, trivial for them to know that you're working off the same route and just kind of ignore. I think it's irrelevant.
Okay, so we are out of time, so we're going to do a quick wrap up. One thing you want people to take away today?
Engagement's incredibly important. So if you don't have a blog on your site and you're not creating those social objects, Google Brett Simmons. He's the one who I learned a lot of what I know about from. He teaches a class here at UNR, University of Nevada, Reno. Create those social objects, create engagement with your customers, and you will be seen as not only as an expert in the subject, but you will be getting sales, and that's what I've done for my stuff.
And I'll build on top of that. I absolutely agree. And I would say that in order to be successful with the engagement part, you need to be passionate. So you need to figure out what is that part that you can be passionate about to generate content that you can sustain that effort. I see so many people that it's like, oh, I hear social is important. Content, is important. Content marketing, et cetera, and let me start a blog site. Let me start a Facebook page. And after a few posts, it just kind of peters out. So try to find what is that path that you're excited about getting the word out, and you have the energy to sustain it, and then find a way to link it back to the revenue opportunity to the product.
And I'm going to build on that and say that my thought just left my head.
Oh.
No, literally.
You're probably going to talk about social?
I was not going to talk about social. Oh, I was going to talk about differentiation. So you've got the mechanics, you have the engagement in the social pieces, and you've got the passion. Make sure you're talking about something that is not the same thing that all your competitors are talking about. Pick a different take. Look at it from a different lens, because if you're just like everybody else, how are people going to know how you're different? And all of those things directly relate to the search engine optimization of your site. Thank you very much. We're all going to be around. We have other panels. And I was asked to share a message that don't forget there are refreshments in the room next door for tea and coffee and all that other good stuff. See you over there. Thank you.